Please, just do it fast. The billionaire whispered. The single dad shared his jacket and melted her walls. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's return to our main character. The rain had been falling for hours, the kind that soaked through clothes, through bone, through whatever strength was left after a long day. Daniel Hayes pulled his beat-up truck door shut and let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. It fogged the windshield instantly. Midnight. Another double shift done. His shoulders ached from hauling lumber. His hands were raw from cold metal. And tomorrow he'd be right back at it because rent didn't care that he was tired. Neither did the bills stacked on his kitchen counter. Still, he wasn't complaining. Not when his little girl slept safely at a neighbor's apartment, her pink unicorn backpack ready for school. She was the only reason he kept going. The only reason he swallowed exhaustion and kept pushing. He tugged his old jacket tighter around him. It wasn't warm, not really, but it was the one thing his late wife had repaired over and over, the sleeves patched with tiny stitches only she could sew. He kept it because it felt like she was still holding him together. He stepped out into the parking lot, head down against the rain, when he heard it a soft, shaky whisper somewhere to his right. Please, just do it fast. Daniel froze. The voice wasn't angry, it wasn't threatening, it was terrified. He turned and saw her, a woman in a satin dress drenched to the skin, heels sinking into puddles, arms wrapped tight around her chest as if trying to hold herself upright. Her breathing was sharp, uneven, the kind that came from panic so deep it stole sound from the throat. She leaned against a concrete pillar, eyes squeezed shut like she couldn't bear to open them. For a second, Daniel wondered if she'd been hurt, or if someone had followed her, or if she was about to collapse. "Ma'am?" he called out carefully, hands raised slightly so he wouldn't scare her. She flinched anyway. Her lips trembled. I can't, please, if you're going to help me, just do it fast." His chest tightened. She wasn't afraid of him. She was afraid of the dark, the storm, the enclosed lot echoing with the sound of her own breaths. Panic attack. His wife used to have them after giving birth, when the world felt too loud, too heavy. He knew that look, the way a person tried to stay standing when their mind was folding in on itself. Daniel stepped closer slowly. "You're freezing," he said gently. Her teeth chattered so hard she couldn't answer. Without thinking, he peeled off his jacket, his only warm layer, and draped it over her shoulders. She gasped at the sudden heat trapped inside the worn fabric. The coat was old, patched, frayed at the seams, but warm, lived in, safe. She held it with both hands like someone gripping a lifeline. Rain slid down her cheek, looking a lot like tears. "There," Daniel murmured, keeping his voice steady. "Just breathe with me, okay? In and out." She tried a shaky inhale, a trembling exhale. He stayed with her until the shaking eased, until her breathing fell into a rhythm. Her hair clung to her face, mascara smudged, vulnerability exposed in a way that made her look heartbreakingly human. When her eyes finally lifted to his, Daniel felt something shift, like the air between them had stopped shivering, even though the storm hadn't. "Thank you," she whispered, barely audible under the rain. I couldn't be alone in here." "You're not alone now," he replied softly. She nodded, clutching his jacket tighter against her chest. And for a moment, just a moment, she looked like someone who hadn't been held, or helped, or seen in a very long time. Daniel didn't know her name. He didn't know she was the most powerful woman in the city. He didn't know that cameras were searching for her, or that security teams were losing their minds at her disappearance. All he knew was that she looked like she'd been carrying the weight of 10 lifetimes, and for tonight, he could carry a little of it for her. He offered her his hand. She hesitated, then placed her cold fingers in his palm. A quiet spark moved between them, almost too soft to notice. Almost. And just when he thought the moment had settled, the headlights of a black SUV swept across them, stopping inches away. The woman stiffened. Daniel felt her hand tighten around his. Whatever came next, this night was about to take a turn he never could have predicted. The black SUV idled only a few feet away, its headlights cutting through the rain like white blades. Daniel instinctively stepped half in front of the trembling woman, not close enough to touch her, but close enough that if something was wrong, he could shield her. The passenger door swung open, and a man in a suit hurried out, shouting over the rain, "Miss Hale, thank God. We have been looking everywhere for you." Miss Hale, the name hit Daniel like a small jolt. The woman in his patched jacket straightened slightly, her breath still uneven but no longer collapsing into panic. She looked smaller than the storm, smaller than the luxury car, smaller than the frantic men calling her name. She looked human. "I am fine," she managed, though her voice wavered. "Just give me a minute." The man hesitated, torn between duty and fear of upsetting her. "Ma'am, your brother is furious. The board has been calling non-stop. You were supposed to be at the charity event 2 hours ago." "I said I need a minute," she repeated, quieter but sharper. Daniel pretended not to hear, shifting his gaze away, the way you do when someone's private life spills into public. She turned back toward him and adjusted his jacket closer around her shoulders. Her hands were still trembling. "Thank you," she whispered again. She looked like she wanted to say more, but the rain, the pressure, the presence of the suited men, everything closed in around her. One of the men approached, holding an umbrella. "Miss Hale, please, you will get sick. We need to get you inside." Daniel opened his mouth to say goodbye, but she beat him to it. "Wait," she said softly. Her hand caught his wrist light, cold, barely a touch, but enough to stop him. Her eyes lifted to his, rain mixing with the traces of mascara, giving her an almost bruised vulnerability. "You really helped me tonight." He nodded, unsure what to do with the sincerity in her voice. "Anyone would have." "No," she whispered. "Not anyone." She let go reluctantly and stepped toward the SUV. The suited men closed in around her, guiding her as though she was made of glass. She paused at the open door and looked back at him once more. Daniel lifted a hand in a small wave, trying not to show the strange tug he felt in his chest. She offered a faint, tired smile before slipping into the vehicle. The door shut. The SUV pulled away. And just like that, she was gone. The rain kept falling, loud, relentless. Daniel stood alone in the parking lot, soaked to the skin, staring at the empty space where the car had been. His jacket. She still had his jacket. He exhaled a long, tired breath. It was late. He needed to get home. His daughter would be awake in a few hours for school. He walked toward his truck, footsteps splashing through shallow puddles. But his mind lingered on the woman with the shaking hands and the diamond-hard eyes. He did not know why it mattered. He barely knew her. Yet something about the way she had said, "Please, just do it fast," kept echoing in his head. As he climbed into his truck, he found himself gripping the steering wheel with both hands, grounding himself in the familiar worn leather. It calmed him. Routine always did. He drove home through the storm, windshield wipers struggling against the sheets of rain. By the time he reached his small apartment building, exhaustion settled into his bones. Inside, he checked on his daughter, Lily, asleep under her blanket decorated with tiny stars, her hair spread out on the pillow like a soft frame. Daniel knelt beside her bed, brushing a stray strand from her cheek. She murmured something in her sleep and curled closer to her stuffed bear. For the first time since the parking lot, Daniel smiled. She was why he survived days like these. He changed into dry clothes, warmed a leftover cup of coffee in the microwave, and sank into the couch. The room was quiet, except for the low hum of the refrigerator and the steady ticking of the wall clock. He should have gone to bed. Instead, he stared at the door, thinking about the woman who had disappeared into the night with his jacket wrapped around her like a shield. He wondered if she was safe, if she had stopped shaking, if she remembered his face. It was a foolish thought. She was someone from another world. A world of black SUVs, security teams, charity events, and board meetings. A world he would never belong to. And yet, he could not shake the image of her blue eyes in the rain. Somewhere in the city, Ava Hale sat alone in the back of her SUV, clutching Daniel's jacket to her chest, breathing in its warmth, its safety, its honesty. And for the first time in years, she felt like she could breathe again. Morning came too early in Daniel's apartment, sunlight leaking through the blinds in thin gold lines across the floor. He woke to the soft rustle of little feet and the smell of cereal. "Daddy, you forgot to buy milk again," Lily announced with the authority only a 7-year-old could muster. He groaned, rubbing his face. "I will get some after work tonight, I promise." She climbed onto the couch beside him, her small hand pressing against his cheek. "You look tired again." "Just a long night," he said gently. But the truth sat heavier than the words. The storm, the woman, the fear in her voice, the way she had clutched his jacket like it was the only safe thing in the world. He drove Lily to school, kissed her forehead, then headed to the construction site. The day was loud, full of grinding saws and shouting foremen, but his mind kept slipping back to her. Ava Hale. He had looked her up on his phone during his lunch break. Billionaire. Tech visionary. Youngest female CEO on the East Coast. A dozen photos of her at charity events, red carpet galas, business summits. Perfect posture, controlled expression, flawless hair and makeup. Nothing like the shaking woman in the rain who whispered for help. Those photos did not match the memory he carried, and they definitely did not explain why she had been alone in a storm at midnight. By the end of his shift, Daniel told himself the same thing he had been repeating all day. She was fine. She was rich. She had people. There was no reason to think about her again, except he did, constantly. Meanwhile, across the city, Ava Hale sat in her office on the 42nd floor of Hale Industries headquarters. The skyline blazed behind her in the afternoon sun, but she did not see any of it. His jacket lay folded on her lap. She had refused to give it to her assistant for cleaning. She needed it exactly as it was, the warmth still trapped in the fabric, the faint smell of rain and pine, and something steady. She ran her thumb over one of the small patches, stitched by hand, imperfect but intentional. No one had ever given her something imperfect in their life. Everything around her had always been curated, polished, branded. But this jacket had been offered without calculation, without knowing her name, without expecting anything in return. For the first time in years, she felt something like humiliation twist inside her. She, Ava Hale, with 6 houses and a private jet, had clung to a stranger's coat because she could not hold herself together. She had whispered words she had never meant to say out loud. Please. Just do it fast. No one knew what those words meant except her, not even her brother. She pushed the thought away before it swallowed her, as it often tried to. She straightened her back and pressed the intercom. Sophie, I need you to pull security footage from the Eastway parking complex, last night between 10:30 and midnight. Find the man I was with. Sophie's voice crackled through. Of course, Miss Hale. Do you want me to contact security about this? No, Ava said quickly. Quiet search. Just find him. Yes, she had people. But they were not the people Daniel thought. They worked for her, not with her. They protected her assets, not her heart. And last night, for a terrifying minute, her heart had nearly stopped in her chest. She needed to return that jacket. But if she was being honest, the jacket was not the reason she could not get him out of her mind. Hours later, as dusk settled, Daniel picked up Lily from his neighbor's apartment. She chatted happily in the back seat, telling him about art class and a boy who ate glue. He laughed at the right parts, but his thoughts drifted again. He wondered if she had slept at all last night. He wondered why someone that powerful had looked that lost. As he pulled into the parking lot of his building, Lily gasped. Daddy, look, that car is really big. Daniel turned. A sleek black sedan sat by the curb, engine humming quietly, tinted windows reflecting the dying light. A woman stepped out, his jacket wrapped around her shoulders. Her hair was smooth now, her makeup perfect, her posture tall and commanding. But her eyes, when they found his, softened instantly. Ava Hale walked toward him, every step controlled, but her fingers gripping the jacket like she still needed it. Daniel felt his breath hitch, just slightly. She stopped only a foot away. You left this with me, she said softly, and I needed to return it. Lily peeked from behind Daniel's leg. Ava's gaze shifted, and something gentle flickered across her face. Daniel swallowed. You did not have to come all this way. She shook her head. Actually, I did. The air between them tightened, quiet and electric, as if the storm had followed her here. But this time the lightning was inside them, not above their heads. And then Ava took a breath, steadying herself for what she had come to say next. For a moment, neither of them moved. The evening breeze lifted a strand of Ava's hair, and Daniel saw her swallow like she was trying to steady something inside her. She held his jacket with both hands, almost hugging it. I came because I need to thank you properly, she said, voice softer than he had ever heard from anyone so powerful. Last night, I did not handle things well, and you were kind. Daniel shifted his weight, suddenly aware of Lily gripping the back of his shirt. Anyone would have helped, he replied. though even he knew it was not true. She shook her head. People help me when they know who I am. You helped me when I was nobody. That matters. Her honesty surprised him. Ava glanced down at Lily and offered a gentle smile. And who is this? Lily stepped out shyly. I am Lily. I am 7. Ava crouched to her level, careful with her movements. 7? That is very grown up. I like your backpack. Lily beamed. It has stars on it. Daddy says it makes me shine. Ava's eyes flickered, a tiny ache crossing her expression. She stood again and faced Daniel. Look, I know this is strange, but I would really like to talk, even just for a few minutes. Daniel hesitated. He had laundry waiting, homework to check, dinner to make. A billionaire on his doorstep was the last thing he could have prepared for. But something in her face, something fragile beneath the composure, made him nod. Let me get Lily settled, he said. A few minutes later, Lily was inside with her coloring book. The door cracked open so he could hear her if she called. Daniel stepped back outside, where Ava waited near the stair rail, his jacket still wrapped tightly around her shoulders even though she was no longer cold. You do not have to keep wearing that, he said lightly. She looked down at it, fingers gripping the fabric. I know, it feels safe. Something about the honesty in her tone tightened Daniel's chest. She took a breath. I want to tell you why I was in that garage last night. Daniel nodded, letting her speak at her own pace. Ava kept her eyes on the parking lot as if it was easier than looking at him directly. I had a panic attack. I get them when I feel trapped. And the charity event yesterday was supposed to honor my father. She paused, swallowing hard. He passed away 12 years ago, but my brother insists on doing this event every year to keep the Hale image polished. I hate it. I hate the crowds, the cameras, the pretending. Daniel listened silently. I slipped out a side door. I thought I could get to the car. But the garage was dark, and the storm started, and everything felt like it was closing in. And then you appeared. She looked at him now, really looked. You talked to me like a person, not like a headline, not like an asset. Daniel exhaled slowly. You are a person. Most people forget that, she whispered. The silence between them felt less like emptiness and more like understanding. Ava glanced toward the apartment door. You are a good father. I saw the way she looks at you, and the way you look at her. He shrugged softly. She is my whole world. I noticed, she said. And that is part of why I wanted to come. She reached into her bag, pulled out a sleek envelope, and held it out. Before you worry, this is not money. I am not trying to pay you for being decent. Daniel frowned but accepted the envelope, opening it cautiously. Inside was a business card and a neatly folded document. He scanned it. This is a job offer? A real one, she said. A position at Hale Industries. Something you are uniquely qualified for. He blinked. I am a construction worker. You are a human being who knows how to read others when they are breaking, she countered, her voice steady. I am restructuring our community programs, and I need someone who understands real people. Someone who does not live in the clouds. Someone who does not fake kindness. Daniel stared at her, stunned. She continued, It comes with full benefits. A salary that would make your life easier, and flexible hours, so you have time with your daughter. He let out a short breath, unsure whether to laugh or freeze. Why me? For the first time, her expression softened into something openly vulnerable. Because you helped me breathe when I could not. And because I trust you more than most people I have known for years. His heart stumbled at the honesty. Ava, this is a lot. She nodded. I know, you do not have to decide now. But I wanted you to have the option. The sun had nearly disappeared, leaving a soft twilight glow around them. Ava stepped back, her voice dropping. Last night, I felt like I was drowning. You pulled me out. Let me return the favor. She turned slightly, opening the door of her car, but paused. And Daniel, whatever you decide, I hope you will let me see you again. She slipped into the car, closed the door, and the black sedan eased away, leaving him standing under the soft glow of the lot lights, his heart beating in a way he had not felt in years. Daniel stood there long after the black sedan disappeared from the lot, his fingers still curled around the envelope she had given him. The night air felt cooler without her presence, but the weight of her words lingered like a small ember refusing to fade. A job offer. At a corporation he had only heard about on the news. From a woman whose picture lived on magazine covers, it made no sense. And yet it felt more real than anything that had happened to him in a long time. Inside the apartment, Lily was sprawled on the carpet with her crayons. "Daddy, who was the pretty lady?" she asked without looking up. Daniel managed a smile. "Someone I helped last night." "She looked at you like she liked you," Lily said casually, blending two crayons together. "Not like Mommy liked you, but like she was scared and you were a superhero." Daniel froze at the innocence of it. Kids saw things adults tried to ignore. He ruffled her hair lightly. "Finish your stars, kiddo." But even as he cleaned the kitchen and tucked Lily into bed, he could not stop replaying Ava's voice in his head. "I trust you more than most people I have known for years." The next morning, he took the envelope with him to work. He did not show it to anyone, but he kept checking the time, glancing at it inside his lunchbox like it might vanish if he blinked. At lunch, he finally pulled the document out again. "Community Insight Consultant" was printed at the top. He had never seen those three words together. It came with benefits he had never dreamed of having. Paid time off. Health insurance that covered both him and Lily. A salary big enough to crush the late fees he kept racking up. It almost scared him. Around him, nail guns cracked, forklifts beeped, his co-workers shouted over machinery. It was the world he understood. A world where nothing came easily and nobody knocked on your door offering miracles. Meanwhile, across town, Ava sat in a board meeting, but her mind was nowhere near the polished conference room. Her brother droned on about quarterly growth charts. But all she could think about was the construction worker who had wrapped her in his jacket without hesitation. She had woken that morning with a strange urge to check her phone, half expecting a message that would never come. When the meeting finally ended, her assistant approached. "Miss Hale," the security team finished reviewing the footage from last night. "We confirmed the man's name. Daniel Hayes. Single father. Works construction. Lives in the West Maple complex." "I know," Ava said quietly, then paused. "Thank you." There was something grounding about knowing his name, something steady. Back at the construction site, the foreman approached Daniel with a clipboard. "Hayes, overtime tonight." Another crew called out. Daniel opened his mouth to say yes. He always said yes. Overtime meant groceries and rent. But something stopped him. He looked down at the envelope again. "Actually, sir, I cannot stay tonight." The foreman raised an eyebrow. "You sick?" "No," Daniel said. "I just have something I need to take care of." The words tasted foreign, like they belonged to a different version of himself, one who did not operate on survival alone. Later that evening, after dinner and homework and Lily's bath, Daniel stood at the kitchen counter staring at the job offer for the 10th time. He whispered to himself, "This is insane." But then his eyes drifted to Lily in her pajamas, humming softly as she arranged her stuffed animals in a perfect line. He thought of the nights she had gone without a proper doctor visit because the copay was too high. He thought of how many times he had told her, maybe next time, when she asked for things other kids had without thinking. And then he thought of Ava, clutching his jacket in a storm, her voice cracking in the dark. She had looked at him like he mattered. No one had looked at him that way in years. He sat down at the table, grabbed a pen, and with a slow breath, signed the document. The next morning, he dropped Lily off at school and drove toward Hale Industries headquarters for the first time. The building rose like a silver crown against the sky, all glass walls and sharp lines, the kind of place he had only seen in movies. He parked his old truck among a sea of luxury cars and forced himself to breathe. Inside the lobby, everything gleamed. Marble floors, soft lighting, a reception desk that probably cost more than his annual rent. He approached cautiously. "I am here to see Miss Hale," he said. The receptionist smiled as if she had been expecting him. "Of course, Mr. Hayes. She is on her way down." On her way down. The words pulled something tight in his chest. A moment later, the elevator door slid open, and Ava stepped out. Not as the billionaire mogul in heels and power suits. Not as the shattered woman from the storm. But somewhere in between, looking steady and fragile all at once. She smiled when she saw him. A real smile, not a polished one. "You came," she said softly. Daniel nodded, unsure if he trusted his voice enough to speak. Ava stepped closer, her eyes searching his. "Does that mean you are accepting the job?" He finally found the words. "It means, I am willing to try." Her breath caught, just barely. And for the first time since the night in the rain, she looked like she could breathe again. For the first few days at Hale Industries, Daniel felt like he had stepped into a world that did not speak his language. People in tailored suits walked with confident strides, tapping on tablets, answering calls with polished voices. Meanwhile, he stood in the elevator clutching a paper notebook because he did not own a tablet and was not sure he wanted one. But Ava had arranged everything carefully. His badge was ready. His schedule was balanced around picking up Lily. His workspace was not a cubicle, but a small office with sunlight and a view of the city. It felt intentional, like she had thought about what would make him breathe easier, and she checked on him, a lot. Not in a micromanaging way, but in a quiet, steady presence. Sometimes she appeared at his door with 2 cups of coffee. One black for her. One with cream for him. Sometimes she asked about his ideas for the community programs. Sometimes she just stood in the doorway, pretending she was only there for work. On the 3rd afternoon, she joined him in the small conference room for a meeting her assistant had scheduled. She walked in holding a binder that looked heavier than it had any right to be. "This is everything our previous advisors created," she said, dropping it on the table with a thud. Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure it is not a doorstop?" She laughed for the first time since he had met her. A real laugh, soft and unguarded. "That is exactly why I need you." They reviewed the binder together. Daniel flipped through pages of corporate jargon, charts, and vague mission statements. "This does not sound like helping people," he said. "It sounds like impressing investors," Ava sighed, rubbing her temple. "That is the problem. My father built this company to support the community, but over the last decade, the programs turned into branding tools. I want to fix that." Daniel looked at her, really looked. "Then say it plainly. What do you want this place to stand for?" She grew quiet. "Humanity," she whispered. "And I do not know how to rebuild that alone." Something in her voice, the small tremor she tried to hide, hit him harder than he expected. He leaned forward, tapping the binder. "Then let us strip it down and start over." They worked for hours, their heads bent over the table, exchanging ideas, crossing things out, scribbling notes. It was the first time in years Ava had collaborated with someone who was not afraid to tell her when an idea was terrible. And it was the first time in years Daniel felt like he was building something bigger than survival. At one point, Ava leaned back in her chair, stretching slightly. "You know," she said, "you are better at this than half the consultants we have hired." "Because I do not talk like a consultant," he joked. "Exactly," she replied. Her eyes softened in a way he had started to recognize. A look she tried to hide but could not quite bury. A look that said he made her feel steady. Later that day, Ava walked Daniel to the lobby as he prepared to pick up Lily from school. As they reached the main doors, she hesitated. "Daniel," she began, "would you and Lily be available for dinner on Friday? Nothing formal, just dinner." He blinked, genuinely surprised. "You want to meet Lily?" "I want to know the people who matter to you," she said quietly. "If that is not too much to ask." He felt something shift, a subtle but profound weight in his chest. "I will ask her," he said. She smiled, the kind of smile that softened every sharp part of her face. "Let me know." The next day, Daniel tried not to overthink it, but Ava clearly could not help herself. She hovered near his office twice, pretending she had paperwork. At one point she blurted, "If she does not like fancy food, we can do something simple." Daniel chuckled. "Ava, Lily will eat anything shaped like a star. Or pink." Ava nodded intensely, as if this information was crucial to national security. When Friday arrived, Daniel dressed in his cleanest shirt and helped Lily into her sparkly sneakers. They arrived at a quiet neighborhood restaurant, not one of the upscale places Ava was known for attending. She was already waiting inside. No bodyguards, no security, no spotlight, just her. When Lily ran up to her, Ava knelt down instantly. "You must be Lily," she said warmly. "I have been very excited to meet you." Lily grinned. "I like your shoes. They are shiny." Ava laughed softly. "Thank you. I like your star socks." As the three of them sat down, something unspoken settled over the table, gentle and warm. Daniel watched the way Ava listened to Lily's stories with real interest, not polite patience. He watched the way Lily leaned closer to her, instinctively trusting her. and somewhere between chicken tenders shaped like stars and Ava wiping spilled juice off the table with a napkin, Daniel felt a realization creep in. This was not a billionaire trying to be kind. This was a woman trying her best. A woman who had clung to his jacket in the rain. A woman who was slowly, quietly letting him see the cracks in her armor. As they walked out of the restaurant, the evening sky painted in warm orange light. Ava brushed a strand of hair behind her ear and looked at Daniel with a soft uncertainty. "Was dinner all right?" she asked. Daniel smiled, feeling something unfold inside his chest. "It was better than all right." And the way her breath caught told him she had needed to hear that more than he realized. In the days following that quiet dinner, something shifted around Daniel and Ava, something neither of them dared to name. Their conversations grew longer, their glances warmer, and the space between them felt less like distance and more like a gentle pull. But the world around Ava did not change as easily as her heart did, and trouble arrived sooner than either of them expected. It started on a Wednesday afternoon. Daniel was reviewing notes in his small office when a voice echoed sharply from down the hall, clipped and irritated. "This is absurd, Ava. Absolutely absurd." Daniel froze. He recognized the name but not the voice. The next second, a man in a tailored suit stormed past the open doorway, jaw tight, phone clutched in one hand. He looked like the expensive version of a hurricane. Behind him, Ava followed with a measured stride. Her calm expression stretched thin. He did not look at Daniel. He did not even acknowledge him. But Ava did. Her eyes brushed across Daniel's for half a second, and he saw something he had not seen since the night in the rain. Tension, fear, and the effort of holding herself steady. She disappeared into the boardroom with her brother, and the door clicked shut. Daniel tried to focus on his work, but muffled voices filtered through the walls, growing sharper, angrier. He stepped into the hallway, not close enough to eavesdrop, but near enough to feel the weight of the argument. Finally, the door burst open again. Ava's brother marched out, muttering under his breath. Ridiculous. Completely ridiculous. This time he glanced at Daniel with an expression that was not curiosity or confusion, but disgust, as if Daniel's existence offended him. Daniel held the man's gaze without flinching. The man scoffed and walked away. Ava emerged moments later, shoulders tense. She approached Daniel slowly, as if each step weighed more than the one before. "I am sorry you heard that," she said quietly. "Are you all right?" She inhaled deeply, her voice low. "My brother found out that I hired you without running it through the board. He thinks it makes me look weak." Daniel swallowed. "Because I am not from your world." She winced at how accurately he said it. "He does not understand you helped me when nobody else did. He does not understand what that means." The hallway lights flickered softly above them. Daniel stepped closer. "Ava, if my being here puts you at risk with your board, I can step away." The words hurt to say, but he meant them. Ava's reaction was instant and fierce. "No," she said, sharper than she intended. Her voice trembled as she continued. "Daniel, you are the only person in years who has not wanted anything from me. I will not let anyone push you out." He felt a quiet heat rise in his chest. Before he could answer, Ava glanced toward the elevator, lowering her voice. "There is something else. My brother thinks your position gives the media too much to speculate about. He thinks people will assume there is something romantic happening." Daniel felt his breath catch. "And is that what the board thinks too?" Ava's eyes lifted to his, softening with a vulnerability she rarely allowed anyone to see. "The board thinks whatever he tells them to think. But what I think..." She hesitated. Her fingers brushed the edge of his sleeve, only for a brief second. "What I think is my choice." The elevator dinged at the end of the hall, snapping the air between them. Ava pulled her hand back and steadied her expression. "I have to meet with investors. But, Daniel, please do not let my brother scare you. This job matters. You matter." She walked away before he could respond, her heels clicking in quick, uneven beats that betrayed how shaken she was. That evening, as Daniel picked up Lily from school, his mind churned. He had stepped into Ava's world quietly, but it was clear now that her world did not welcome men like him. It did not welcome kindness without agenda. It did not welcome change. But when he tucked Lily into bed and finally sat down on the couch, he remembered the way Ava's voice had cracked when she whispered, "You matter." And for the first time, Daniel realized that this was bigger than a job. Ava did not just need someone to help reshape her company. She needed someone to remind her that she was allowed to stand up for what she believed in. Someone to stand beside her when the walls started closing in. Someone to be the steady ground when her world began to shake. And Daniel, whether he wanted to or not, was becoming that steady ground. 2 days after the confrontation with her brother, Daniel arrived at Hale Industries expecting another tense morning, but instead found a message on his desk in Ava's neat handwriting. Please meet me on the rooftop at 10. No explanation, no appointment on the shared calendar, just a quiet request. When the elevator doors opened onto the rooftop garden, Daniel was met with the soft rustle of leaves and the distant hum of the city far below. The sky was a pale blue, streaked with drifting clouds. Ava stood near the glass railing, her back to him, arms wrapped around herself as if trying to hold something steady. She turned when she heard his footsteps. Her smile was small, tired, but real. Thank you for coming. He stepped closer. You sounded like you needed space. Or a witness. She huffed a soft, humorless laugh. Maybe both. For a moment she just breathed, like she was preparing herself. Then she said quietly, Daniel, there is something you should know. My brother is trying to remove me as CEO. Daniel felt the words punch the air out of him. What? Why? Because I want to redirect our funds toward community programs, toward mental health initiatives, toward real people instead of corporate image building. He hates that. He says I am romanticizing humanity. She looked down at her hands, fingers twisting together. He thinks I am too emotional, too unstable, and he is using last week's panic attack against me. Daniel stepped closer until they stood only a foot apart. Ava, that is not weakness. You know that. Her eyes lifted to his, full of something fragile and raw. Maybe, but to the board, strength looks like control. And control is the one thing I never seem to have when I need it. A gust of wind lifted her hair, and Daniel instinctively reached out to steady her elbow. She did not pull away. Instead, she exhaled, a soft shudder leaving her body, as if being touched gently was something she was still learning how to accept. I am fighting it, she said. But I need help, and I hate needing help. Everyone needs help, Daniel said, even billionaires. She let out a small laugh, soft and wounded. Especially billionaires. There was a silence that felt less like emptiness and more like gravity. Ava took a breath, choosing her words carefully. My brother thinks you are a liability. He thinks your presence makes me look reckless. Daniel did not flinch. And you? What do you think? Ava's lips parted, then closed, as if the truth was pushing against her ribs trying to escape. Finally she whispered, I think you are the only person in this building who tells me the truth, the only one who does not treat me like a title, the only one I can breathe around. The confession hung between them like suspended light, quiet but impossible to ignore. Daniel's heart stuttered, not with surprise, but with recognition. He felt it too. He had felt it since the night in the rain. Before he could answer, the rooftop door slammed open. Both of them stiffened. Ava's brother strode toward them, face twisted in anger. So this is where you are, he snapped, hiding on the roof with your charity project. Daniel felt Ava flinch, and instinctively stepped closer, positioning himself slightly in front of her. Not enough to be confrontational, but enough to make a point. Her brother noticed. His eyes narrowed. This is exactly the problem, Ava. You cannot run a corporation if you are out here playing rescue fantasy with a construction worker. Ava straightened, her shoulders squaring with a quiet strength. Daniel is my employee, and he is doing work that 3 departments failed to do. He is a distraction, her brother hissed, and the board agrees. Daniel could feel Ava go tense beside him. She tried to speak, but her brother cut her off. There is a vote tomorrow morning. They want you replaced. And with the way things have been going, you are giving them reasons. The words struck her like a blow. Daniel saw it in the flicker of panic behind her eyes, in the way she braced against the wind. Her brother turned sharply and left the rooftop, letting the heavy door slam behind him. For several seconds, Ava said nothing. She looked at the city as if searching for something solid enough to hold her together. Daniel moved closer, lowering his voice. Ava, look at me. She did. And when she did, he saw the truth, fear, exhaustion, and the heavy weight of a world that never let her be weak. You are not alone in this, he said, steady and sure. You do not have to face him alone. Her eyes filled, not with tears, but with a trembling kind of relief. Why are you helping me? she whispered. Why do you care this much? Daniel's answer came without hesitation, because he had carried it long before today. Because someone should. Because you deserve to have someone in your corner. The wind hummed around them, soft as breath. For the first time, Ava reached for him first. Her hand found his, fingers curling gently but with purpose, as if grounding herself in the one honest thing she had left. Thank you, she murmured. Stay, please. Daniel squeezed her hand, steady and warm. I am not going anywhere. And in that moment, with the city stretching wide below them and the coming storm gathering above, Ava Hale realized that for the first time in her life, she had someone who stood with her not because of her power, but because of her pain. The morning of the board vote arrived with a heaviness that settled over Hale Industries like a low-hanging cloud. Daniel felt it the moment he stepped into the lobby, the way employees whispered, the way the air felt tight, the way every elevator ride seemed quieter than usual. He made his way to the 42nd floor, where Ava stood near the glass wall, overlooking the city. She wore a navy suit, minimal makeup, her hair tied back in a clean, simple twist. She looked powerful, but the small tremor in her fingers told him she was not unbreakable. How are you feeling? Daniel asked quietly. Ava exhaled slowly, like I am about to walk into a room full of men waiting for me to fall apart. Daniel stepped closer, lowering his voice. Then let them wait, because you are not falling today. Something in her eyes softened, the smallest flicker of hope pushing through the fear. She took a breath, straightened her shoulders, and walked toward the boardroom with Daniel beside her. When the double doors opened, the long table was already full. Her brother sat near the center, jaw clenched, papers arranged in neat stacks like weapons. The board members looked up, some with sympathy, others with thinly veiled judgment. The tension pressed against Daniel's ribs. Ava took her seat. The meeting began. Her brother stood first. We are here to address concerns about the direction of Hale Industries under Ava's leadership. There have been emotional outbursts, unstable decision-making, and questionable hires. His gaze slid straight to Daniel. This is not personal. It is about protecting the company. Ava rose slowly. The company my father built on integrity, humanity, and real service, she countered. The company I have fought for since I was 22 years old. Her brother scoffed. You fought with emotion, not strategy. Ava inhaled sharply. Emotion is not a flaw. Caring about people is not instability. You had a panic attack at a public event, Ava, her brother snapped. You disappeared for hours. The room shifted. Some board members exchanged glances. Ava's breath faltered. Daniel could see the storm rising in her. Without thinking, he stepped forward. If I can speak, he said. Her brother turned to him with disgust. This is a private board meeting. You made me the subject of this argument, Daniel said evenly. The least you can do is let me respond. Shock rippled across the room. Ava looked at him with a mixture of fear and gratitude. Her brother rolled his eyes. Fine, say what you want. Daniel faced the board, steady, calm, the way he stood on rooftops fixing beams during high winds. You are looking at Ava's compassion as weakness, but compassion is the reason she was the one who helped her father build community centers during college. It is the reason people trust this brand. It is the reason this company became more than a corporate machine. The boardroom grew quiet. He continued. You say she is unstable because she had a panic attack, but panic attacks are not weakness. They are human, and a leader who remembers her humanity leads better than someone who pretends they have none. One of the older board members shifted in his seat, listening more closely. Daniel added, Last week, she panicked in a dark garage. But do you know what she did the next morning? She showed up to work. She led meetings. She fought for programs that help people who cannot fight for themselves. That is not instability. That is strength. His voice steadied further. If you remove her, you are not protecting the company. You are stripping it of the only thing that still resembles a beating heart. Silence stretched. Ava's brother looked shaken, but he recovered quickly and snapped. Inspirational speech, but this is business. The older board member cleared his throat. Actually, it is leadership. Another spoke up. I've reviewed Ava's new projections. Her plans for community reintegration and employee wellness have long-term financial upside. A third nodded. And I have concerns about removing a CEO based on medical bias. That sets a dangerous precedent. One by one, voices aligned behind Ava. Her brother's confidence drained from his face as the vote began. When the final tally was read, Ava remained CEO by a significant margin. Her brother stood abruptly, knocking his chair back, muttering curses under his breath as he stormed out. When the doors closed behind him, the tension dissolved. Ava turned to Daniel, disbelief and relief crashing together in her eyes. She did not say anything. She just stepped toward him, slowly at first, then all at once, wrapping her arms around him. Not polished, not careful, just real. He held her gently, grounding her the way he had that night in the rain. She whispered against his shoulder, "Thank you. You saved me again." He shook his head softly. "No, you saved yourself. I just reminded you who you were." She pulled back slightly, looking up at him, her voice trembling with something tender and new. "Daniel, I want you in my life, not as an employee, not as an obligation." His heart thudded. "Then as what?" She took a breath, fingers curling lightly into his shirt. "As someone I care about, someone I trust, someone I want." There was no crowd, no storm, no panic. Just two people standing in the quiet aftermath of a battle she had spent years fighting alone. Daniel brushed a strand of hair from her face, his voice steady and warm. "I am not going anywhere, Ava." She smiled, the kind that melted every wall she had ever built. Later that evening, as Ava, Daniel, and Lily walked out of the building together, the sky glowed with soft gold light. Lily slipped her small hand into Ava's without hesitation, and Ava looked down with wonder, as if she had been handed something precious she did not know she was allowed to hold. Daniel watched them, a warmth blooming in his chest. Not money, not power, not status, something better, something real. For the first time in her life, Ava Hale was not running from panic. She was walking toward a future built on honesty, kindness, and the man who had given her his jacket in the dark when she had needed a lifeline. And as they stepped into the fading light, it was clear that this time, she was not walking alone.